We're women, so we can just lie and control these big movies. How disturbing is this to you?
And so despite all of the resentment, to me, at the end of the day...
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Get ready for a story that's got Hollywood buzzing, a tale of alleged betrayal, hidden agendas, and a lawsuit that could expose the dark side of fame. We all know Blake Lively, the charismatic actress, who often seems like she can do no wrong. But what if I told you there's another side to the story? A side that involves accusations of orchestrating a career takedown. Did Blake Lively, the darling of the silver screen, actually pull the strings? To have a fellow actor, Justin Baldoni, fired? This isn't just your typical celebrity gossip. This is a deep dive into the scandalous feud that's tearing apart professional lives and raising serious questions about power in Hollywood. Buckle up, because the truth behind Blake Lively's lawsuit against Justin Baldoni is far more shocking than you might imagine. Let's get into it. Alright, so Blake Lively initially painted a picture of someone deeply affected by whatever went down with Justin Baldoni. We're talking claims of severe trauma, anxiety so intense that she allegedly couldn't even bring herself to face the public. It was a narrative of someone truly suffering, a fragile star reeling from some unseen hardship. But then, the plot thickened faster than a Hollywood scandal. Remember the premiere of A Simple Favor? Blake Lively, who was supposedly too shaken to leave her house, showed up looking absolutely radiant. She strutted down the red carpet, posed for the cameras, and by all accounts seemed to be soaking up the attention. It was a head-scratching moment for many. If she was truly in such distress, wouldn't she be avoiding the spotlight? This stark contrast between her claims and her actions immediately raised eyebrows and fueled speculation that something wasn't quite adding up. And then, adding another layer to this already perplexing situation, Blake's own director from A Simple Favor, Paul Feig, stepped into the fray. He publicly shut down the idea that Blake was too terrified to be seen. This wasn't some anonymous source or tabloid speculation. This was the person who worked closely with her on set, directly contradicting her narrative. Feig's straightforward statement essentially pulled the rug out from under Blake's claims of being emotionally fragile. At the time of the premiere, if she had truly been as frightened as she claimed, wouldn't her own director have known? His public disagreement strongly suggested that Blake's initial story might not have been entirely truthful. This was the first major crack in the image she was trying to portray, hinting that there was far more to this story than met the eye. But the real bombshell in this whole saga dropped when a leaked audio recording surfaced. And this wasn't just some random insider. It was Ari Emanuel, the CEO of WME, one of the biggest talent agencies in Hollywood. In this explosive audio, Emanuel openly admitted that he fired Justin Baldoni. Now, you might be thinking it was because of some professional misconduct or some kind of scandal on Baldoni's part, right? Wrong. According to Emanuel himself, the reason for Baldoni's dismissal was simply because he was close friends with Blake Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds. Let that sink in for a moment. The head of a major agency essentially confessed that a person's career was impacted not because of their performance or behavior, but because of who they were friends with. What's even more telling is that in this leaked conversation, there was absolutely no mention of Justin Baldoni doing anything wrong. It was all about the dynamics of friendships and power within the industry. This revelation completely flipped the script on Blake Lively's initial claims. It strongly suggested that instead of being the victim she portrayed, she might have actually been the one wielding influence behind the scenes to get someone she didn't want around removed. This audio clip was a smoking gun, exposing a truth that was far removed from the narrative Blake Lively had been feeding the public. It painted a picture of Hollywood where personal connections and favoritism could have devastating consequences for someone's career, regardless of their talent or professionalism. And the fallout from this leaked audio and Baldoni's firing was significant, especially for Justin's career. Suddenly, projects he had lined up started to fall apart. We're talking about some pretty big deals, including a live-action Pac-Man film. Can you imagine? That vanished. Other arrangements were halted too, including a significant partnership with Wayfair Studios. It was like a domino effect. Once WME, a top-tier agency, dropped him, streaming platforms became incredibly hesitant to touch him. In Hollywood, being dropped by a major agency can be like a curse. It sends a signal that something is wrong, even if it isn't. Nobody wanted to take a risk on someone who had been seemingly pushed out from the inside. Meanwhile, as Justin Baldoni's career was taking a nosedive, Blake Lively seemed completely unaffected. She continued to work, even landing a gig narrating a documentary for Hulu. This just underscored the power imbalance at play. While Baldoni was facing professional ruin, Lively was still very much in demand, proving she still had the influence to keep her name in lights. It was a stark and unsettling contrast. One person's career was seemingly thriving while the other was crumbling, and the leaked audio suggested a direct link between the two. This raised serious questions about fairness and the potential for powerful figures in Hollywood to manipulate the industry to their own benefit, leaving others to pick up the pieces. So, Blake Lively had initially framed this whole situation as if she were the one who had been wronged, the one who was suffering and needed protection. She painted a picture of Justin Baldoni as someone who had caused her immense distress. But as more information came to light, particularly that leaked audio, this narrative started to look increasingly flimsy. The truth that was beginning to emerge painted a very different picture, one where Blake Lively wasn't the helpless victim, but potentially the one who had used her influence to orchestrate Justin Baldoni's downfall. This discrepancy between her public persona and the behind-the-scenes reality was becoming harder and harder to ignore. People started to see through the carefully constructed image of a fragile star, and adding another layer of complexity to this already tangled web were accusations of promissory fraud leveled against Blake Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds. 1. While the specifics of this accusation weren't detailed as a major amendment initially, it suggested that there were legal claims beyond just the emotional distress that Blake had cited. This further complicated the narrative and hinted that the legal battle might involve more than just hurt feelings, potentially touching on business dealings and agreements. It was becoming clear that this wasn't just a simple case of a celebrity feeling wronged. There were potentially deeper issues at play, and the truth was proving to be far more intricate and, frankly, scandalous than anyone initially thought. Now, if Blake Lively was truly experiencing anxiety so severe that it prevented her from leaving the house, as she claimed, then why did she continue to make appearances at all these high-profile events and constantly post on social media? This was the question that was on everyone's minds. Shouldn't someone who's too anxious to step outside be seeking peace and quiet, away from the flashing cameras and the constant attention? It just didn't add up. Her insistence that Justin Baldoni had ruined her life felt increasingly hollow when her own life seemed to be moving forward without a hitch, filled with red carpets and social media snaps. And if that wasn't suspicious, enough. There was another bizarre twist to this whole saga. Remember that Freakonomics podcast that recorded Ari Emanuel's confession about why he fired Justin Baldoni? Well, that particular episode never actually aired. The official explanation? A technical glitch supposedly caused it to be lost. Now, call me cynical, but in the world of Hollywood scandals, that excuse sounded a little too convenient, a little too perfect to be a genuine accident. The internet certainly wasn't fooled. Despite the missing podcast episode, the audio of Emanuel's confession somehow still managed to leak and spread like wildfire across social media. Once people heard the truth directly from the source, they started to see through Blake Lively's claims of being too scared to exist in public. It all felt very carefully managed, raising even more questions about what was really going on behind the scenes and who might have been trying to bury the truth. So the situation had gone way beyond just a personal feud. The leaked audio had inadvertently pulled back the curtain on how things can operate in Hollywood, and frankly, it scared a lot of people. The prospect of this whole thing going to trial sent shivers down the spines of many industry players. Why? Because a trial could mean everything getting dragged out into the open. We're talking about the potential for text messages, emails, phone calls, and personal information to be laid bare for the public to see. That's the last thing many in the entertainment world want. It could expose just how easy it is for a well-connected actor to essentially wipe out another actor's future with just a phone call or a meeting behind closed doors. Beyond that, a trial could also shine a harsh light on how agencies operate. Are they always following fair procedures? Do they always investigate the facts before making decisions that can drastically alter someone's life and career? Or do they sometimes simply bow to the wishes of their biggest stars to keep those valuable relationships intact? These are the kinds of uncomfortable questions that could be answered if this case went to court. It wasn't just about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni anymore. It had the potential to unravel a much larger story about the power dynamics and potential for abuse within the highest echelons of Hollywood. The stakes were incredibly high, and the possibility of a massive scandal that could implicate multiple players loomed large. Now, let's talk about where this leaves Blake Lively. She's in a bit of a corner, to say the least. She's built this whole narrative about being a victim, and if she were to back down now and settle, it would essentially be an admission that she made things up. That would be a massive blow to her carefully cultivated image as someone who stands up against wrongdoing. She'd have to face the very real possibility of being seen as someone who tried to destroy a man's career for potentially no real reason. On the other side of the coin, Justin Baldoni seems to have a lot less to lose and potentially a lot to gain. He's got the leaked audio of Ari Emanuel practically admitting the firing was personal, not based on any professional failings. He has strong evidence. So why would he settle? If this goes to trial and he wins, he could potentially get a significant payout and, more importantly, clear his name. He could rebuild his career by showing the world that he wasn't the villain Blake Lively tried to paint him as. The contrast between their situations is stark. One is seemingly clinging to a crumbling narrative, while the other has a real chance at vindication. It really makes you wonder how this will ultimately play out and what the long-term consequences will be for both of them. All right, so the truth behind Blake Lively's victim narrative seems to be crumbling, potentially exposing a darker side of Hollywood power dynamics. Will Justin Baldoni find justice? And what will the consequences be for Blake? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this story shocking, hit like, subscribe for more Hollywood deep dives, and share this video. Thanks for watching.